Afterwards, the Minister will reply. The list has been given. The Jairam, Ramesh will then share the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, sir. Sir, I rise to speak on a bill which has already become a reality. This is a bill which provides for the merger of the State Bank of Travancore, the State Bank of Mysore, the State Bank of Hyderabad, the State Bank of Patiala, and the State Bank of Bikaner and Jaipur into the State Bank of India. The merger already took place on the 1st of April 2017. These associate banks have ceased to exist. However, we are discussing this bill a year and 2 months after the formal merger took place, better late than never. This bill has been scheduled for successive sessions, but for one reason or the other, it could not be taken up. So we are actually giving post facto approval to a merger that has already become a reality. Sir, the history of these state banks is well known. There were 7 associate banks, and in 2008, the State Bank of Saurashtra was merged with the State Bank of India. In 2010, the State Bank of Indore was merged with the State Bank of India. And today, we are merging last of the 5 banks, which are a historical legacy, into the State Bank of India. In fact, sir, today, the only bank started by an erstwhile Maharaja, which still exists as an independent entity, is the J&K Bank, which was started by Maharaja Hari Singh way back in 1938. Sir, I want to use this opportunity to raise certain questions and issues relating to this merger. Actually, technically, sir, this is not a merger. This is an internal reorganization within the SBI family, because the logo is the same. The chairman of the SBI is the chairman of the associate banks. Senior level appointments are made by the SBI. The treasury operations are common. Credit decisions are taken by the SBI. So technically speaking, this is not a merger. This is an internal reorganization within the large SBI family. So in the last 25 years, there have been 32 mergers in the private sector banking industry. And the most recent merger was in 2004, when the Global Trust Bank, with which you are very familiar, the Global Trust Bank was merged with the Oriental Bank of
Familiar
Commerce.
because of the area. Otherwise, people...
No, you are familiar because of the fact that it was started by a Hyderabad-based entrepreneur. No other illusion, sir. The fact that the GTB was merged with the Oriental Bank of Commerce. There has been only one merger where a public sector bank has merged with a public sector bank, and that was in 1993, when the new Bank of India was merged with the Punjab National Bank, which of course now has become a household name. It took almost 5 years for Punjab National Bank to deal with the implications of the merger of the new Bank of India. So it's very easy to say that mergers must take place, but the reality of the mergers is quite different. And the experience of the Punjab National Bank with the new Bank of India should be a cautionary tale. So in 2016-2017, the net losses of these 5 associate banks was 11,800 crores. The net losses of these 5 associate banks, Travancore, Hyderabad, Mysore, Bikaner and Patiala, was 11,800 crores. The net profit of the State Bank of India was 10,500 crores. Sir, look at this. We are merging 5 banks whose consolidated loss was 11,800 crores with a mother bank which was making a net profit of 10,800 crores. So the story does not improve in 2017, 2018. For the first time in 20 years, State Bank of India reported a quarterly loss in the last quarter, quarter 3 of 2017-2018 of 7,700 crores. It had never reported a loss. The last time SBI reported a loss was in 1999. For the first time, for the quarter ending December 2017, the State Bank of India reported a loss of 7,700 crores. Sir, we thought that was a one-quarter event. However, for the next quarter, the quarter ending March 2018, State Bank of India has reported a loss of 2,400 crores. The short point is this. State Bank of India is the crown jewel of the Indian banking industry. We all hope it will not be privatized under any circumstances. It has stood the country well. It has served the country well. However, the merger of the associate banks into the State Bank has created some financial dislocation which will take some time to smoothen out, and whatever support the State Bank of India requires from the ministry and from the government should be readily forthcoming, because we need a healthy state bank which is really a global enterprise as far as India is concerned. So, 3 or 4 issues relating to the merger which I want to highlight. First, we don't merge physical entities. Ultimately, merger is about people. People of one bank merge into people in another bank. Today, the State Bank of India, total employees is 200,000, 2 lakh. The employee strength of these 5 banks is 70,000. So the total employee strength of the State Bank of India now is going to be increased from 2 lakh to 2,70,000. State Bank of India will become the 5th largest employer in the country. Now the point is, merger involves human resource issues. How do you manage the transition? First of all, managing 2 lakh people is a challenge, but managing 2,70,000 people is going to be an even bigger challenge. And I would urge the government to pay greater attention to the human resource aspect of the merger and not just the balance sheet aspect of the merger. We tend to get fixated on the balance sheet. We should really be focused on the people who are being merged. So the second issue is that there will be need for bank rationalization. Not bank nationalization, but branch rationalization. There may be hundreds of branches which may have to be rationalized, because now these 5 banks are merged with the mother State Bank of India. Of course, in today's day and age, with electronic banking, internet banking, mobile banking, brick and mortar banking does not have that greater relevance. However, sir, we are used in this country to going to a bank. Going to a bank is not just to withdraw money. Going to a bank is like doing Tirth Yatra. You know, you go to a bank. It's inbuilt into our system. I still go to my bank, even though, you know, I have all the IT tools at my command. So I think this branch rationalization aspect is something that the government has to pay far greater attention to than has been the case so far, and particularly because these 5 banks are now coming into the SBI fold. So a third point I want to make, that these 5 state banks, associate banks, played a very important role in the local areas. Now, for example, to take an example from your own state, the State Bank of Hyderabad played a very important role in the growth of the women's self-help group movement. In fact, the 2 banks that fueled the women's self-help group movement in Andhra Pradesh, undivided Andhra Pradesh, was Andhra Bank and the State Bank of Hyderabad. The State Bank of Mysore has played a very important role in the development of districts of Mysore. The State Bank of Travancore has historically played a very important role in the development of Travancore and parts of Travancore. The point is, sir, today everybody looks at banks, bigger the better. Bigger the bank, the better. Bigger the balance sheet, better. Sir, I want to add a word of caution. Bigger is not always better. Bigger is not always efficient. You need global scale, but you need local skills. Banks have to be looking globally, but they have to be operating locally. Now, State Bank of India has all of India and the entire world on its canvas. But the State Bank of Hyderabad, or the State Bank of Patiala, or the State Bank of Bikaner in Jaipur had local areas as their focus. So I am afraid, in the name of reforms, in the name of globalization, we are losing the local roots of our banks. Our banks must be global. They must be strong, but they must have strong local anchors. And I would urge the government that while they go ahead with this merger, they also pay adequate attention to strengthening the local level operations, how the local level operations of these big banks like State Bank of India, Bank of Baroda, and so on and so forth can be further encouraged. Right. So my final point is this. From time to time, we keep hearing reports. So may I have your attention, sir? Yeah. From time to time, we have...
I've given my other name.
So I would like to have your undivided attention, sir.
Right. Please carry on.
So can I have your undivided attention for a few minutes, please?
You have 3 more minutes.
We pay you undivided attention, sir, so I would expect the same from you as well. Sir, from time to time, we keep hearing that India requires lesser number of banks. Banks should be merged. Sometimes we hear statements that bank must be re-privatized, because ultimately 50 years ago, these banks were private and they were nationalized. So I would like the government of India, today, neither of the two cabinet finance ministers is here, but the Minister of State is here, and I would like the Minister of State to give an authoritative statement on the behalf of the government of India that privatization of banks, denationalization of banks is not on the government's agenda, number one. Number two, sir, this loose talk that India requires 6 banks, India requires 7 banks. So how do you arrive at 6, 7? India is a vast country, 1.3 billion people. We are going to be 1.7 billion in 30 years' time, 29 states, different regions, different requirements. Now, how does somebody, an economist or a civil servant, determine that 6 banks are enough for India or 7 banks are enough for India? These evolve through developmental needs and challenges. And I would like the Honorable Minister to say that these numbers are not being plucked out of a hat, that banks will be strengthened, systems of accountability in banks will be improved, and when mergers take place, mergers will take place not for the sake of reducing the number of banks, but mergers will take place because it makes sense for both banks to come together. Right. It should not be distress marriage, it should not be a shotgun marriage, it should be a marriage between 2 willing partners. So finally, banks have been in the news in the last couple of months. We have all read the large number of financial frauds, financial scams that have taken place. Clearly, sir, and this is not just in the public sector banks. We have also seen this in private sector banks. So clearly, there has been a complete collapse of governance systems. Within the banks, there has been a collapse of the governance system between the government and the banks, and there has been a collapse of the regulatory system. And I would urge the government to use this opportunity to take the people of India into confidence, because there is nothing more psychologically devastating to a country when it begins to lose confidence in its banks. Losing confidence in politicians is one thing, but losing confidence in banks is, in my view, far more disastrous, because in the case of politicians, you can always choose when elections are there. In the case of banks, you can't. So I think in order to instill confidence in the people that the banking system is healthy, I think the government should come out and say, these are the steps that we are taking to ensure improvement in governance within the banks. These are steps that we are taking to improve the regulation of banks, which is done by the Reserve Bank of India. And these are steps that the government is taking to improve its own relationship with the banks. So with these words, I support the bill. I wish the bill had come much earlier, but I urge the government to use this opportunity of looking at some of the structural problems of our banking industry and not look at privatization and denationalization as instant miracles.
Thank you,
sir.
Thank you, Jairam. Ramesh.